Welcome. Today I'm going to make a little twist on the technique we used for the wave cutting boards, and if you haven't seen this video, there's one on YouTube for making a wave cutting board where we made maple inlays in a cherry base, just a little under an 1/8 inch deep. And now we're going to make a cutting board with a crab inlay. And the reason I'm recording this is because it's a completely different technique. When we did the wave cutting boards, we used a straight bit in the ShopBot machine, and it cut square-sided grooves that I could then fit the maple inlay into. So for the crab cutting board, though, I'm going to use a V-bit. And the reason I'm using a V-bit is because I can get the very detailed contours of this crab. V-bit can essentially cut any contour, and we'll have a nice socket kind of a fit between the V of the maple and the corresponding V cut into the base. So I'll show you how that works, and you end up with a nice piece like this. So let's go ahead and take a look. To make the crab, I used the outline that you can get from VectorArt 3D, and you can see this in black. And what we're going to do in the cherry is we're going to use a V-bit to cut inside the crab. So I'll just show you how that works. It's done in 2 steps. The first step is just a roughing step, and I've set this up so you can see the tool move. You get some feel for time compression of how this works. But there's the rough part of the crab that's cut out there. And now we're going to use the V-bit itself to finish up. So the roughing was just done with a straight bit. Now we're going to use the V-bit to finish up. You can see the V-bit running around, and you essentially end up with a crab pocket that has a 60-degree angle on the sides. Alright, so the next thing we do, close that up, is we take the crab and we flip it. So that now we have the mirror image of the crab, and this is the part that's going to be cut in the maple. And this time we're going to cut outside of the crab with the V carving tool. Now this is where things get a little tricky. If you recall, when we cut the cherry with the V-bit, we were cutting it so the edge of the V-bit was riding right along the outline that we had, which would tell me that as you moved into the wood, considering you had a slope on each side, the base of that cut would be a little narrower than the outline you see here. So the trick is, how do we get the maple to be the inverse of that, such that the maple will fit down and actually be able to bottom out in the bottom of the cherry? Well, there's a couple ways to do that. You could draw this crab with an offset so that the vector is actually a little smaller than this, and then tell your V-bit to go ahead and carve to that outline, which would make these claws and body a little narrower. Or you can do it by telling the software to put this modeling plane a little deeper into the wood itself, and that at that point, say 150 thousandths deep, is where the, if you slice the wood that deep, you'd find this exact size of a crab. But near the surface of our actual piece, we'd be narrower so we could fit in. I know it's a little hard to imagine. You really got to kind of think about it and get your mind around it. But you're trying to make this socket kind of arrangement. So we've got the inverse there. Now let's go ahead and take a look at how that cuts. So the first thing we'll cut is the rough cut with the end mill bit. And there you can see it cutting away. And then we'll come in with the 60-degree V-bit and put the 60-degree angles on the sides. Here we go. So this top dimension of this maple should be the same size as the deepest part of the cut in the cherry, so that this maple will fit right into the cherry.
Now I'm using a 1/4 inch straight bit end mill to rough out the maple. Now I'm using the 60-degree V-bit to cut the sides, and ideally the tip of that tool will trace an outline exactly the size of the opening at the top of the cherry that this maple piece will fit into. And now again I'm using the 60-degree V-bit to cut into the cherry. And now I'm using a 1/8 inch end mill to rough out the places like inside the claws and inside the body, places where a V-bit cannot put a nice smooth flat bottom.
Well, here's the finished cherry. Comes out really nice. And this is the finished, excuse me, finished maple. It's still got to be brushed up, cleaned up before I can put these parts together. There's a lot of little hanger-oners here, but that's what it looks like. This cleanup's a little bit different than on the wave cutting boards because we have V-shapes here that fit together, so we don't have to relieve the edges, but we still have a lot of little fuzzies in here that have to come out. Particularly the V-bit leaves fuzzies on this maple. Just using a wire brush, a brass brush, just to brush away the fuzzies so that they don't get in the way of the glue joint. Now, in applying the glue, I think it's important to get glue on every little bit of the 60-degree beveled surface for a couple reasons. First of all, that's most likely going to be the surface that holds the pieces in, because it's questionable as to whether this piece will actually bottom out into the pocket that was cut. You just don't know. And the other thing is that for any minor imperfections in fit, this Titebond 3 glue has a little bit of gap filling capability to seal up little cracks between the, in the joint, and that would, aid the cutting board in its ability to not absorb, pieces of food and so forth. Okay, now let's go ahead and clamp this up using the same kind of clamping setup I did with the wave boards. And the assembly's clamped up much like I did with the wave cutting boards. Got a caul on the bottom, then the sandwich that I'm gluing up, a caul on the top. This time I used a couple of strong backs top and bottom to help more evenly distribute the pressure around the crab. And there we go. You got a nice outline of the crab, turned out very nicely. You can see the eyes, claws, the whole thing. It's turned out very well. So this is a nice technique. Now, the rest of this, I refer you back to my video on making a wave cutting board. We'll go through the trimming and the beveling of the sides and the finishing. But for now, I just wanted to show you how this technique of inlay with the ShopBot and Vectric software works.